franchise crickets. You're going to do it, aren't you? Finally, we had to endure this election cycle for one more hour. Holy smokes. There's no mercy on us. For those of you in past casts, this will be BTWRLM187. V, franchise. I've come around and look at this date of a day ago. It's kind of funny to me. It's sad in a way. I've discussed it. I've disgusted with it, actually. I was wondering how long ago I talked about this before and found out that I spoke about this November 5th thing that inspired so many people to supposedly protest. And I forgot all about it until last night. There was a little news blurb about it. The Million Mask March floods the streets of London. And I reminded myself, I wonder when I talked about all that. The V for Vendetta mask that's used to celebrate what is essentially a Jesuit potential Jesuit destruction of the House of Lords in London. That was picked up in the movie Vendetta, that the mask, which is now the focus for my discussion today, for just a moment or two, becomes the symbol of that. Again, blows me away. Again, we have V crickets, V franchise. We don't even know what we end up doing and taking on and what we promote. And right before the vote, which kind of seemed kind of interesting, because this vote in the United States of America, where we see for sure out of his own mouth, one of the vice presidents of one of the candidates is a devout Jesuit, which caused me to think about, well, that maybe Hillary's set up to die, and they move a Jesuit into the office as one, again, the categories of possibility of the controllers of the world. Now, what's going on? What's trying to figure all this thing out? Who are the ones moving the levers of all this? But that we crickets in the streets come out now since the movie and pretend that we're protesting, using an icon now, a franchise icon, to disseminate this thought that people don't understand the underlying meaning for. That eventually you find out. I talked about this back in July. The end of July of 2011, and as I remembered, I looked at that, and I looked at some other things. I said, I wonder if I'll just start replaying all the files that I have that I used to do, and just replay them. And it's really, I'm just saying all the same stuff over and again, and people continue to do what I call the crickets, the wrong thing. I certainly don't challenge or have a problem with the protest or the action of working against the oppression, but when you take on the icons of the oppressor, I mean, I don't even know what more to say. Hundreds now. It's supposed to be the Million Mask March. Hundreds of masked activists have gathered in a Trafalgar Square in London on Saturday the 5th for the annual Million Mask March. So we already see now the promotion of the failure of the activist here as well. But I wanted to remind you about this Guy Fawkes mask, and not to say more about it. I've discussed it pretty well clearly back in 2011. I suppose if anybody's interested, you can contact me, and we figure out a way to get the file back up. But it's only a 10-minute discussion. You can do the very same thing getting on the internet, like I'm going to do. Just type in Guy Fawkes mask and get the wiki. And I mean, there's lots I could talk about. I've already said most of this nonsense about what Anonymous has picked up about Occupy. Occupy Wall Street is all supposed to be against the corporate interests, right? Against the corporate control. It's like what they claim in North Dakota. Part of the aspect there. Oh, the corporations are such beasts. Yeah, there's a little bit of that. But when an organization comes on and takes the icon of what amounts to be a fictional character as well. Your deeds outdo your words. I say this all the time. And their deeds are what we're supposed to be watching. Where are we told that? Again in the Liber Code. Another set of broadcasts I've done, which I have to get in touch with Vince. I haven't been able to make a connection. He wants to send those up, I guess, into YouTube maybe. I haven't quite figured out how that's going to work. So if you're all interested to hear what my comments were on the Liber Code, we're going to put them back up. But these things are right in our face. It says if you don't have to hear martial law declared. They just you're in martial law by how you're oppressed, essentially. If they do it right, they're not. You don't even notice it, that you're oppression. But let me get down to the point here. I opened up with V. Vote is your franchise. V for Vendetta was an icon of the mask that Anonymous and Occupy and all these so-called protesters and activists, so-called clueless people, just really disappoint me, because I wish they would do better. I wish they would. Well, I wish they would listen behind the woodshed. Maybe they'd really figure out what it is they have to do and how to go about it, which is what I'm trying explaining. And people will not really understand me until they, as when someone asks, well, what do we do? I said, just find the wrong you need to make right and go make it right. And I'm an email away if you start to run into some questions. And we don't have that many people that take that on. But let me get down right to the bottom of it. The bottom line here of this corporate mask that everyone wears to protest their activism, to protest the oppressor, to promote a Jesuit action against the House of Lords in England. Inspired, I know, by the sentiment stated in the movie, but that's just to get your buy-in, as we keep talking about it. Sales and corporate ownership of rights, something that Occupy professes to be against, that Anonymous professes to be against, and lots of other people. And I've been a little bit through what the corporate thing is. It's not that scary and not that ominous. It's that, again, we have no accountability to all these things, and we the people allowed that to continue. And we see ourselves now, because we didn't maintain the proper accountability, the excrement rose to the top and now is ruling over us, and that's the caucustocracy. So here we go back to the actions of Occupy or the Anonymous group and whoever all else puts on that mask. And I think back when in 2011 I was criticizing Kokesh for putting it on. When I'm looking at this thing being, that mask is simply a product of, it's a franchise product of a company and a corporation, the same corporate, one of the corporations, media corporations no less, that all these people complain about. They're promoting it every time they buy that mask and wear it. But here it is. Sales and corporate ownership rights of the mask itself. According to Time in 2011, the protesters' adoption of the mask has led it to becoming the top-selling item on Amazon.com, another corporation, selling hundreds of thousands a year. Time Warner, one of the largest media companies in the world, owns the rights to the image and is paid a fee with the sale of each official mask. That is the official mask. I suppose you can make your own. The point is if you're not giving money to the corporations and advancing their ability to continue making them profit, you're advancing the cause that mask represents and the truth of the history, which is the Jesuit cause to overthrow the House of Lords and Parliament and to bring on Catholicism. And you can go right back up to the top of this, which I didn't really, again, I could read lots of this stuff. You can do it for yourself. It says right up in the beginning, the Guy Fawkes mask is a stylized depiction of Guy Fawkes, Guido, the best-known member of the Gunpowder Plot. The plot was an attempt to blow up the House of Lords in London on November 5th in 1605 in order to restore the Catholic head of state. So, keep promoting it. I'm glad there was only thousands instead of the millions. Maybe people are learning. Maybe they're getting tired again. You see the movements come and movements go. That's why I say you can't rely on movements and other people. That was another discussion we had in one of the chats. I said, stop looking at other people. It's difficult enough. You don't keep talking and try and get people. You're not pushing string uphill here, folks. You got to just grab the string and you carry it over the hill. Forget about trying to get someone else to see the light. Those people are far and few between. In the Miners Association meeting, not the district meeting, we talked even about that. I just remembered. We have to take this on our own. I know that no one likes to do that. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to spend 30 years trying to figure out what was this lie that hit me square in the face 3 decades ago. And apparently, the way I'm wired, that didn't settle too well. And so I've moved on. I'm moving on to stop this enemy that's around me. And it's around you. And now we find it's really global. And these email things from this election are just explaining that to us. I mean, it's a bad situation what we're facing. And part of how to resolve that is really going to be for each one of us, regardless of those around us. You have to roll your sleeves up and go figure out something that you can do. And a lot of this will be you just won't even know how to do it, but it comes to you if you take on a more dignified way to approach it. You figure out what your strengths are, and like what we do. I don't necessarily talk to the seats of decision so well myself, but I talk to people and I fortify and give research and study and strategy and tactics to people who do. And one is plenty, folks. If you just, that one makes another one and another one in the proper direction, we prevail. It's happening. And we just do this silently. I don't promote because I don't want the attention drawn to places that we're making advances. Why? That's just a war strategy. Why would I want to say we're making a victory in a certain city and then have all them put forces against it and quash it? Because then they figure out what we're doing. So a lot of this is done behind the scenes. I don't tell you nearly what you need to know. What I tell you is how to start. I put you on the path, what I talked last week. I'm a pathfinder. I've looked at these paths. I may not have been down every one or seen every nook and cranny, but I can tell you they're there and I can tell you what to expect. And you will do that too over time, but you're never going to do it until you put yourself on one of the paths you need to go down. Now, you can decide to be on that path and go down it all by yourself. You don't need my permission. But if you run into a little bit of resistance or a little hesitancy, I might may have some insight. I don't know everything. But when you deal in the hub of a wheel, you don't worry about the rim that every once in a while hits the poo in the street to worry about your wheel still being on. No, the hub is where it's all about. And from the hub, you can hit everywhere around that wheel. You can get down back the axle and get into the vehicle that's running you down the road. And if someone's sitting in the seat of decision that's running off the road, you have the ability to you're at the hub of how it rolls, how it all rolls out, and you have the control when you show, listen, I'm the wheel. I make this thing go around, and I do that by telling you you're off the law. You're off your obligations and duties. Yet another thing I made a mention. I only make these sentence mentions. It was in the UCY chat as well when Ron Stevens was making talk about his broadcast. You find the obligations and duties of people that are in there. You find the one you can speak to. There may not be many, and you may have to take some time to do it. One of the guys we talk about time. I just said 3 decades for me. I hear 20 years for other people, 35, 40 for other, 10 years for others. It takes time. One of the guys I've been working with, it's been 3 years he's been working to give information to the wider audience. And it's starting to work. It just takes time. You just need to get in and roll up your sleeves and figure that out. Figure out what it is that you want to see changed and just start working toward it. So where I don't necessarily work, I can if people will listen, but I tend to come up with a lot of information maybe too quick, and I haven't learned how to throttle that back for as many years I've been trying, as I come here behind the woodshed to tell you and try to throttle back. At some point, if I throttle back like the speed that everyone else does, I'd never get anything out, actually. At least if you have to listen to my broadcast and you have to listen 5 times, you listen to some different aspect that I was going so quickly on that is now coming to you. That's a victory for you. Now, if you take that and put it in practice. And I'm not going to be here to judge what that actual action practice is. I don't mean practice like practicing. I mean put it into action. Proper action. So Guy Fawkes is come and gone again. Another promotion of a Jesuit Catholic order taken on by people who profess to fight and be anonymous and fight to occupy corporatism, and they're fueling it. That's wrong action. Am I against the protest of the oppression? Absolutely not. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater here like people tend to do. Now, in this election, we've been looking, and Gary L. found here this last week, and I'm just going to mention it here, start moving on here. There's been, Trump has said, and this has been known, just that Trump was the only candidate to call it out, and he said that there's going to be some election rigging. I found during the last week or so, you might want to find out, I don't have the link for it today, Fraction Magic, a demonstration on how you hijack elections across the country in every precinct for every measure, candidate, or ordinance, or anything you want to vote on. And someone figured out, taking that bull by the horn and saying, if I was going to do this, how would I? And he was the talented guy to be able to pull that off. Now, Fraction Magic is a video you need to see. You need to see how from one spot they can control all elections. And Gary L. gives me this webarchive.org paper, presentation from WRCB that has they'll call it a test sheet, but it has the outcome of the election, decision 2016, and Hillary Clinton's already on it at 42% in that precinct. And then It also names the electoral votes at 343 to 195. What I notice is there's lots of little problems and errors, which also are not good to watch. So this is it could be called a test sheet, but why? Why didn't they have it reverse stuff? Why didn't they put different names in? Why did they make it so that Hillary's in lead when they know that Trump's going to be having a problem with all this? And this is just, if it goes the wrong way, this is going to make this election the result worse than Bush and the Gorpocryphal one. And then again, 343 to 195, they say it's 42 to 40% in the Electoral College. That's not that. And how can people who get no electoral votes on this sheet, how can they have if Jerry Johnson gets 0 electoral votes, how can he have 8% of the precinct? If they call it a precinct vote for the Electoral College. Why is it listed like that? So we see lots of these anomalies coming, and that just puts my mind on, okay, what is this setup about? What do they want us as people to, what are they wanting out of people when they see this overt corruption? It was predicted and it's being found. And we found it before, but now it's being called out, so it makes it even more prevalent. They've been building us up into this as people. And then I think it was Moose Girl last night in the RLM chat, brought up another link from somebody else who's putting stuff together. Busted. Newsweek already has the Clinton Victory Special Edition in boxes ready to ship. This is quite stunning. It really proves that there never was an election at all. Now remember the elector problem, and it seems to me I can figure out how this has already been done, but here's got the pictures for those of you who want to see it. Newsweek already has the Clinton Victory Edition in print with the barcode, and you see the pictures of the publication. Now, if this comes out, this is going to again fuel the problem that Trump has put on the table. This becomes a real issue now that throws this whole election into a pretty big mixmaster. Now, again, I don't know which way this all goes. This is all, when you see the fraction magic control, when you see that it's untraceable, literally untraceable, and I don't know the ultimate IT look at that, where you can, maybe someone who knows way better than me may be able to identify how you can track it down. When you realize they're using hidden pages in order to tabulate and keep track that you won't ever see anywhere, that they then call up for their data, and you realize that this network that they're doing on this test page was apparently a hidden page as well, then you start to understand there's things that are transparent to you. Pretty simple. So just wanted to put the heads up. Anticipate this turmoil that's being potentially built in. I don't even know what more to say. I mean, we can get lots into discussion, but if it's the rigged vote, it's not who makes the votes, it's who counts them. In this case, we even have electoral college problem, so it's not just, it could be who's making the votes, but who's counting them and how they get there becomes the next control point that they may have been built in that is being made obvious now. And I'm looking, okay, what do they want out of this? What is going on? We've already been hearing it. They say if Trump doesn't win, and they're going to have chaos, and they're all pointing out the rednecks are the only ones that come to see Trump. Well, they're pumping something here, folks. They're pumping an idea, and I'm a little concerned. I hope we're bigger than this, but the bottom line is that it's all a big uncertainty. And so I like to, not that I'm the analyst somehow and I keep my mind in all this stuff, but these little stories kind of keep me thinking, try to keep me ahead. In other words, and it's just conjecture, but who didn't like Bernie Sanders so bad that they picked Clinton to then throw her under the bus into the last 4 weeks in favor of a guy that they didn't want? We have at least three factions going on here. There's a war going on behind the scenes that's pretty fascinating. We all kind of see it, but we don't know. Who hated Bernie Sanders? It would have been much better to put Bernie Sanders in than Hillary Clinton, knowing that they knew about this before. And I think Bernie Sanders probably would have carried more of the undecideds, possibly, and more of the Greens when they come up against Trump. I think everyone would have went for Bernie Sanders. So who hates him so much to keep him out of the running, to put Clinton in, to destroy here at the last second, to put Trump in? And I've told you the last few weeks, if we have to do any kind of a thing for what I do what I've been doing for 10 years now, to identify a corruption. If we want to make America bigger, better, make America the superior place, like just to get us back into working, folks, I've got an insight on all that. That's what we've been working on. The government, the federal government, has destroyed the public land production in this country, that no new laws would be needed to get it back into vigor. Well, within the limits of the economy, certainly. That I already see how we can actually fulfill what Trump is saying. Whether or not we'll get the opportunity is a different thing, but if we get Hillary, we don't, is my only reason why I would say, let's at least give me the opportunity to work with the people I work with to try and get into Trump and say, listen, we can get half this country back to work. I mean, half the country that works out of the public lands or public domain and natural resources industries. But ultimately, on the political side of this, it's up for grabs, and I think they're building in uncertainty. And I just wanted to point out again, because of this, we've been told about the banana republic that we're becoming. I've mentioned that the United States has become what is now a banana republic. I think I did it when I identified the unqualified one coming in with his hope and change, and I said we're going to be left with nothing but the chain that falls out of the hole in our pocket, the hole in the pocket that was made there because we're so destitute we can't afford clothes. We're going to be eating gruel like in the Matrix, which is not a movie. The Matrix is not a movie. When you come to your senses, you find out you live in a sewer, and you got the centurions coming after you. Okay, I'm pausing here. I want you to keep up with that. That we live in this banana republic, and now it comes out, and everyone's looking past this stuff. Everyone's looking past so much, it's just astonishing to me. Like the thing with Hillary Clinton now, you don't realize they just named a bunch of people in the Clinton Foundation the FBI claims they're going to go after, investigate. You don't realize that then gives everybody a whole lot of, there's a whole lot more bodies to pick from as Hillary moves out the side. She goes out the side door now while they focus on the Clinton Foundation, which is not Clinton. And if you listen to the Ammon Bundy condition in Portland, you find out when you look at even the partial instructions we were given in the news, so-called, telling us what the jury was told to rule on. 30 pages of jury instructions, and you see how difficult it is to get a conspiracy charge on someone. They can even do acts to fulfill what a conspiracy planned to do and not be part of the conspiracy. You'll notice what they're doing here with this Clinton Foundation is a different entity, the people inside of which are different than Clinton herself. She's going out the side door on this. So everyone's like, all over this, and they missed the very obvious thing that up in the news this week. I found it very interesting. Everyone pointed out, it's passing this guy's video around, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree. Well, I've got a question I want to ask him. I said, if you're a real guy, I've got something I can tell you about bringing the condition back. If you think America needs to be straightened up, I've got some insights myself that I wonder if you're real to bring that forward and use the military to do it, because that's where we are in this country. In this concept where that now is being promoted, that what the Clintons were doing was a silent coup, and now there's a counter coup, which some guy comes out, I remember now his name. Maybe I should have had his name. Oh, Dr. Pishzennik. He's a part of supposedly the intelligence committee, but we miss, right, the title. If there's a coup going on and Hillary Clinton does it, and then there's a counter coup, we live simply in a banana republic, folks. This is no different a coup, maybe different in form than what Erdogan just claimed that he ended, which I tell you, that's what's turkey soup. There's nothing that interferes with what I said I believe went on there. That we live in a banana republic already, and they're telling us that. There's a silent coup and then a counter coup. We don't live in a republic. Your vote means nothing. This is all the people, the players behind the scenes that are running military operations. I tell you, we live in battlefield America. They tell you in the news, silent coup and counter coup. That is not a republic for United States in the form of laws that protect property, life, liberty, and property, and things like that. You're missing. If you get involved with the intelligence community coming, you're going to go rah. They're going after her. They're going to take her down, Hillary Clinton down. You've missed it. You've bought into the false narrative already. You think they're a white hat. And anyway, I just want to call your attention to these things they're transparent, seem transparent. I see no one talking to this stuff. Maybe it's because I have a little small view behind the woodshed and that I don't get out and see it. But Twitter's been awful silent about these kinds of things. So you live in a banana republic. They just told it to you. You got coups going on. Not a. Let's get beyond the franchise problem with the voter and the electors condition. There's a coup going on, folks. There's a counter coups. There's not an election process. There's not this so-called democracy where the vote of the people means anything. Even the electors don't mean anything. But again, let me go back. I think that's how they predict if this goes into Hillary Clinton land, and woe to us, big time. Remember, woe, she's a lawyer. Woe unto you lawyers. They have no scruples at all. They don't care about you. That if they go by the electoral vote this Newsweek, and they've polled to a certainty that they can believe that the electors are going to vote, notwithstanding anything that happens, they're going to vote in Hillary Clinton, they can come out pretty confidently that Clinton will win, because they already know who the actual electors are that are going to swing their vote. And in dealing with the governments, again before our lawsuit, and talking to people on the party part, there's some pretty high level analysts that work all this stuff out. That they do have a pretty high, they definitely have a pulse, their finger on the pulse of people. And that's partly what drives me to say things like, well, if you're a registered Republican, you've already agreed to the franchise, you had better get out 100%. You can't be one lagging. Every one of you has to go, and then you got to bring someone with you that's not in your party so that you can expose the corruption and overthrow what everybody thought was a certainty because you acted different than you have in the past. In other words, you get in a state that's balanced between this power centers of the Democrats in the big cities and the what they call the countryside folk that are really the producers that are being beat down because their numbers are not that high. If every one of those producers got together, they would overthrow the normalcy of the system and expose the fraud of the counting all by themselves that way. That those countryside folks are typically more conservative, and typically they equate that to being Republican. Now they're deluded that way, but that's just not what I'm not talking about. My opinions of what I think I see. I'm saying there's a boots to the ground reality on the ground that goes on. Like I said, in January, so one of these two people is going to be a president, or at least claimed so. We have to deal with that, and so I'm looking into the future for us. Who can we best deal with? We'll have to deal with either one, but who can we best deal with? And that's what we're kind of leaning our shoulder a little bit in that direction. We're not looking at the election. It's over. Whatever is. Clinton said, whatever is. We're going to see. So there's a silent coup and a counter coup going on, and no one speaks to the fact that means, essentially, my opinion, my conjecture, we already live in that banana republic. And if you don't understand what that means, then you're missing it again. And to waffle about that and to just turn your way, I'm into, I've just saw a media Twitter thing. I voted for the giant meteor. Great joke. I think it's fantastic. Great, good. But when January comes, that's going to really mean nothing, and it didn't prepare us in a way we may have either exposed the other corruptions, even lent itself to the chaos that's going to come, given the voter rigging statement that Trump has already made to set his standing essentially. He's not stupid. I'm not saying this guy's stupid. I just don't think he's got anybody. He hasn't done and said anything that's specific to the things I know need to be done. And he brings up people around him that are no different than the other side and are no different than what the type of people and ideas that have gotten us to the problem we have. But we have a reality to look at. And one of the realities is they're telling us is a silent coup went on by Hillary. And we see all the WikiLeaks now about that, and then now they're stepping up. The counter coup is stepping up, and I'm thinking, why? Why is a counter coup stepping up and saying so? That's another game. But in fact, they're making a movement against it. You see it happening, and so we don't live in this democracy so called. And I use that word loosely. And again, I'm way beyond some of these terms as well, but I don't know how to communicate some words to certain people, so I just got to use the street language and hope that's good enough for most of y'all. And I think if you've been listening to me, you kind of can give me that latitude. So we're seeing a coup happen, no different than any coup in any third world banana republic, or even what Erdogan was given the heads up for to protect against. And you see how grateful he is. I mean, it's just been completely gratitude toward Russia. And no one notices that the coup means that we're not living in a system of laws and a system of a Republican form of government establishment, which is set up and prepared and obligated and does protect you in your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And that really should bother people. I don't know why it doesn't. But I understand why it continues. And here's an example moving on over. All these people that we're talking about, these corruption, it's an organized criminal syndicate cabals, the government itself, the people in the government, the political parties, the lawyers that are all there. And this is beyond opinion for me, I keep telling you. I am sitting with a default judgment in my favor, in my colleagues' favor, and in the mining district's favor, and the assemblymen's of the mining district's favor, that the political parties and the Bar Association have agreed they commit treason. It's high treason, as a friend of mine was saying. He was scolded for not saying, but I don't. How many more words did I throw in on this? If you don't know what treason is, high treason doesn't mean any difference anyway. They are knowingly and intending to make war on the laws of the United States. It's your political parties and your lawyers, your Bar Association. So you tell me who isn't part of those, and I'll tell you those are the other people you need to pay attention to. Maybe they need to be put in office. That all these people that are of these persuasions, these races, the lawyers are a race. Doubleday Dictionary, 1974. Go look it up for yourself. You find it. They put out this. They make up the system, and they don't tell people, and people don't know what's going on, and then those same people who are working on their agenda to foist the federal or the international imposition of governance upon you attack the people inside the land who don't know. And the property owners were required, first of all, by an obligation and duty to be protected, but then they were not supposed to be resting on their rights when they got someone trespassing either. And so now we see how this thing continues is really just a big monstrous ignorance, if I'm going to be nice, of the people themselves. First of all, not throwing out the nonsense, but then when they get attacked singularly, they don't know how to respond. And they don't ask simple questions, and they don't create a case for themselves that starts to out the crime against them. Feds begin challenge in North Idaho over mining claims. Now, you may think that this means nothing to y'all, but mining law talks about your property. It talks about it explains how you have your property that's not a mining claim. Everything was an undisposed land until it was disposed to people, private people, long time ago, or sometimes recently. It all comes from the obligations and duties in the West, at least, on the Congress to do so by agreement of the states by your enabling acts, or in Oregon it's the admissions acts of the date of the state, the birth of your state, the organic state, not the de facto corporate state. And so these obligations and duties are the things that I said in the UCY chat, is you take to your official and say you're obligated, you have the duty and obligation to do this before you do anything. That takes a little bit of education. We don't walk in there and slap them about the head and shoulders and say, this is it. Well, we say, did you know? And here it is, and here's how you get there. First of all, we find out if they're interested. A little bit of reconnaissance has to be done. Feds begin challenge to North Idaho mining claims. So I look at this, okay, fine, we're having another attack. I look around, it's outside of the borders of Jefferson Mining District, so it's kind of outside what I would deal with anyway. I don't like seeing this, but there's not much I can do. No one's calling us about it. Whether or not we have time to deal with it too, I don't know. It's more words to someone and hope they pick it up. But fishing, camping, and protection of the American Indian artifacts along the northern Idaho River outweigh the desire of placer miners to search for gold, an attorney representing the United States Forest Service said. You folks, if you understand what the attorneys that represent the government say, they say there is no property in miners. They say there's no property in anybody now. And that happened in 1976 when the Congress, violating their fiduciary duty to convey the land, declared they would keep the land, and all the states were crickets. That violates the Enabling Acts right there, but that in the FLIPMA, Federal Land Management Policy Act, or whatever. So, an attorney for the DOJ, representative for the U.S. Forest Service, says that Indian artifacts overcome all grants of Congress. Now, this is an interesting story, and I don't want to get too deep, but I just want to show a couple of things pretty quickly here. That this is not actually, possibly, I have to do a deeper analysis for this as well, but just on the surface, by this report, this is not underneath the 1872 law, but another act which reinvested mining rights to power sites, which withdrew mineral entry from the power sites. And so this is a little slightly different analysis. And I will say I'm ignorant of that analysis, but I can do some pretty quick checking. And it says right in this article here, it says that there's a Mining Rights Restoration Act of 1955 is controlling, and agencies such as the Forest Service can ask for a hearing before the Internal Board of Land Appeals, that's the IBLA. This is the administrative court of the Secretary of Interior, who are full of agenda, sustainable development jerks. As our analysis, most of the cases that the IBLA have, this may not be one of them, but for granted properties, the IBLA may not have any jurisdiction. And why would that be? But because it's disposed into state law, and state courts have the authority, as I was telling you in the Malheur condition. But notwithstanding that, and notwithstanding the fact you're walking into a buzzsaw, you're walking into it anyway, no matter how you get in there. If you get in there, that's why when the BLM made a decision against my claim and my co-owner's claim, we denied their authority, and they then appealed their own decision, and we denied that they could. And interestingly, the IBLA never made a decision on that, and then they tried to deny that we even have what we have, but state law says we have what we have, and so we're saying you're committing felonies. And so this is when you have lack of remedy, you just do essentially if I can say this without insulting people, the Mexican standoff. And we continue to go work, and they have no authority and power to throw us off because we know some other things. But this law is the 1955 law, not the amendment to the 1947 law of the same year. But this restores mining entry, mineral entry, to power sites that were taken from some time before. And so we have to go look at that law. But before I get there, this says that a geologist named Clint Hughes testified Tuesday that he prepared a lengthy report on more than 36 claims filed last year. He said this research, including samples from the claims and history of the mining area, showed none of the claims are likely to be economically viable for mining. I concluded there is little to no gold on these claims, he said. Now, first off, I don't know that if the 1955 Act is applicable, that the standard of marketability is actually applicable, but let's go to the more important point. Geologist Cliff Hughes by that title, has no authority to make a report to challenge the marketability of a mining claim. And so he should not have been allowed to testify by the IBLA judge, or the miners should have stepped up and said, hey, he doesn't have authority. Why? Because the BLM has to have an independent study for what they call the discovery, the value that it's valid. They have to do this for each claim. It's a lengthy process, and what the government has to do is not a report. They have to do a mineral exam. It's done by a certified mineral examiner, not some geologist. Geology is completely separate and different from mineral law, mining law, and what's required underneath it. That this guy testifying on Tuesday shows me there's a problem in that ALG, that administrative law judge, that no one's checking. I don't see anybody saying they have opposed it. If they did, no one's sending us any information that they are. I got to read from the story. That if you check that, all of a sudden all those miners BLM would have to pay for this mineral examination. Now what happens practically is the miner then has to pay also to do a secondary co-test with an independent examiner, independent of the government, so that both the tests can go in and be and be presented. There's a whole process for all this as well. I mean, the samples that are taken are handed to 3 parties, actually. There's really a formal process about all this. That just some geologist testifying in an administrative court tells me major violations of law are going on here. First, this is the testify. The United States Forest Service may have a right. Let's go look at what that right is to make this question. So I said I'm ignorant of this 1955 application. So what do? You go read it. So I have a problem with there's no actually certified mineral survey that certified examiner did to be able to testify, which was supposed to be done not at the IBLA as an appeal, but in the BLM in the first instance of the district that issue arises. And upon the question by affidavit of the Forest Service into the BLM to start the process. Why is the IBLA, the appeals court, actually looking at this already and having people testify into it? It is a real interesting point to me. So let me go over to the 1955 Mineral Restoration Act. It's in 30 U.S.C. Code 621. Now, all of you can do this. And I go down and I start looking at stuff and reading through, and a lot of it's kind of blurry-eyed stuff. I'm not really that interested. I'm just looking for certain things and come up B. I go down to B. When it talks about what's going on, placer claims, notice, hearing, order, rules, and regulations is the title. The locator of a placer claim under this chapter, however, shall conduct no mining operations for a period of 60 days after the filing of a notice of location pursuant to Section 623 of this title, if the Secretary of Interior, within 60 days from the filing of the notice of location, notifies the locator by registered mail or certified mail of the Secretary's intention to hold the public hearing to the determination whether the placer mining operations would substantially interfere with other uses of the land included within the placer claim. Mining operations on that claim shall be further suspended until the Secretary of the Interior, now not Agriculture, has had the hearing and has issued an appropriate order. So let me stop there. The question came to me, which was not in the report. As I tell you, I read these reports, are totally different. There's never the facts to establish whether or not any of this stuff is valid. It's my main complaint about North Dakota and the so-called DAPL and no DAPL. It says right here, when that notice of location is filed with the county, there's no action to be taken by anybody but the Secretary of Interior, not the Secretary of Agriculture, not the Forest Service. The Secretary of Interior is to have a hearing if it determines it needs to have one. It has to happen within 60 days. My question is, who is the standing of the Forest Service to be here? Why isn't it the Secretary of the Interior having this case? Why and when were these claims filed? Was it within 60 days? Because if it wasn't, the government has no standing to complain. It's done, whether or not there would be artifacts. And I can just suggest to you, paramateria, taken all together, the extraction of minerals is not to suffer these cultural things. You remove those, you give an opportunity to remove them, and then a miner goes to work. It's not supposed to be so cut and dried. A continuing productive use that's better than mining probably can't be found. For preserving it for cultural reasons may not be. It gets us back down to the Antiquities Act. It's the smallest footprint, and then only if it doesn't destroy the mineral extraction. Why? Because the minerals can only be found there. You just don't make these minerals up anywhere. They are a finite resource that's demanded by every one of you all, by your daily goings-on, whether you understand that or not. But process-wise, we don't do it right. We let these oppressors continue to oppress. We don't question jurisdiction and the authorities and the delegated authorities to come in the right time, the right place, the right subject matter. And we end up creating records that are wrong, potentially. Now, if these are claims that were filed within 60 days, I still see a problem. What's a geologist testifying on reports instead of a mineral examiner? That's to the Secretary of Interior to do, not the Forest Service. And who's the Forest Service then at the IBLA? They're supposed to write an affidavit to the BLM, and the BLM is supposed to move this forward. And this is not, I'm not talking high-level stuff here, folks. You just go read the rules, how this works. It's not that difficult. And so we are doing it completely wrong. The attorneys are driving this. The administrative law judges that all come from sustainable development and running this country down are in charge right now by the same corruption you see is being exposed to you. It's nationwide. The political parties of which are all taking their financials from the backside of all these things they do to, again, if I can produce that there's not going to be any mineral development, but it's going to do something else, and I can put a value on that, I can monetize that in our fiction fiat derivative system. And you don't think that the congressmen are in on that? They know that's exactly why these laws get put in when you're looking at preservations, conservations, particular uses. They've already got their financials set up by them to take advantage while they deny all y'all. But we deny ourselves by not going reading simple things and keeping everything in a simple order. And I guess that's my whole point about that. We're doing it to ourselves. Until we step up, we're going to lose. And those of you that hear me that kind of have a foot in the door of somebody back over in Idaho, maybe you should call them and tell them. Ask them some questions. You'll see the links of the broadcasters. No sense that you can't pick this up and hand it to them. I don't have the time to do it. They don't call me. They probably won't listen to me anyway. If you have a friend, maybe they'll listen to you. So this is the only thing. I can just talk. I can just hope. Better than the change that falls out of the hole in my pocket, for that type of change, that we get back to the law. All these challenges I've just rendered here to you is enough to shut this down. You know, this IBLA that's making a decision on this, like on the Sugar Pine mine. That decision's not coming out. I predicted all of that. They don't want people working. This was one of the felonies and treasons we asked the Secretary of Interior, Jules, to show cause how she wasn't committing, what she wasn't committing, that the FBI was set against us. And that's fine. We were able to offset that. Again, the Mexican standoff. They came with their threats, and we brought back the law that says that what they were doing was felonies. So until we get a mass awareness of what's going on and don't take none of this, don't allow this to continue, the few of us that are standing up, the mouse to the eagle, if you will, we're just going to have to stand there. And we're going to have to threaten that eagle with that, because he knows we got the 45 hanging behind us. And it's not the gun that he's worried about. The gun is the law. It's the black and white. It's the thing that we've identified how the government has no authority. It is not sovereign here, folks. And if it is sovereign, it has obligations and duties to effect, so it's not sovereign again. If it's a debtor, folks, it's not a sovereign. I've said this over and over. For all y'all that listen to me that don't think I'm giving nuggets, I'm disappointed. You're not listening. You're not listening too close. I know I talk fast, but I'm talking in things that are just written down, and anybody could read it if you just apply yourself. So moral oppression comes down from all of these, the caucusocracy that we exist in, and no people anywhere know what to do or do properly. Another example, landowners denied protective order from the BLM. Now this is happening down in Texas for you all down there in that river that wanted to keep your private property private. Federal Judge Reed O'Connor ruled that Federal Government Bureau of Land Management does have the right to perform inspections on portions of private property along portions of land along the Texas side of the Red River. We've talked about this a little bit behind the shed, Woodshed. But here's now a decision by a judge, and I suppose, because I don't know that there's any Article 3 court in Texas, in the federal side, I want to ask you folks, based in land disposal, given the patent says this is exclusive possession and enjoyment like our mining claims are for the minerals, including the surface within the boundaries of the claim of your property, given it's exclusive, and I've told you before that charge is against even the United States itself, how did this federal judge get authority to say that the BLM can trespass underneath a federal warrant to do so? Is treason. It's done as a trespass without authority, without competency, without a court to sit in by a judge, has no authority over the disposed side of the land. He doesn't even have the jurisdiction over the BLM side, which is where? Back in the Secretary of Interior, the IBLA that I just talked about. That this judge says that the BLM can come on your property in Texas is a felony. The disposed side sits in the state law. The federal side, depending on its status, sits in the federal side, but under different ways of discussion. Why did those attorneys down there in Texas, even though the state attorney general says, oh, I'm going to fight this, he's another bar member, folks. Why did they allow it into a court that doesn't actually exist under Article 3 and cannot have a competent judge inside it that can make a competent judgment? Why'd they do that? Why aren't the people smart enough to argue that there's no jurisdiction here? Why didn't they arrest the people that tried to make it look like it? Remember, under color of authority, someone divests you of something that you're granted, that's a felony. Why is that so hard to get through everybody's mind, to have people just understand that's how this works and then insist about it? Unless the patents that dispose that land say that there's a reservation to the federal government in the disposition, they have no rights. Your rights are as against the government. The government's not sovereign in this. They're obligated to protect you. And more importantly, the state or the county was supposed to do so as well. Why didn't anybody in all this say that? If you think I'm spouting opinion and don't know what I'm talking about, you ain't read enough. I'm just kind of commenting out of what I've read that's out of their books. And I just tells me, if you don't listen to what I'm saying and you challenge me without challenging me, and you just have a thing you talk about, or you just dismiss what I'm saying, shame on you. Shame on you. This is our problem. I've got a mining law tells me that I have exclusive possession and enjoyment, that the enabling acts of the state said that the states agreed with this disposition, that they gave complete and free title to the government to do so, to make the disposal. In other words, there's an obligation and duty to dispose. The statement of the act, the reason of which is that the state, nobody in the states wanted the state itself to have a lingering interest. And so they had to do this legal law machination to hand over the title and interest and property over to the federal government for disposition, purposes of disposition, so that there would be no reservations by the state government. That what you get in this property is written in your patents. If it doesn't say there's a reservation to the federal government to allow the BLM to inspect its borders, they don't have that right. It doesn't have that right. I shouldn't say they, it's just a government framework. The people that are inside it of which making the claim are committing felonies under state law. Where's your attorney general? I know where the attorney general is. The same one, it's the same place all the other ones are in. They're bringing this country down. So, again, we do it wrong. No one makes these jurisdictional challenges. No one understands the hierarchy of authority or where it's been given up or how these people are not, these people that have a costume on have no authority actually. That we don't require that they expose the authority. You understand, they don't even have, the BLM has no title over that river either. How do I know that? How do I know that, folks? Those of you who have been listening to me for a long time, remember the kid, I'll call him the kid, young man, Dusty Ford. The BLM came after him. They asserted in trial testimony in a state court, right where they were supposed to have the trial, in the state court now, not the federal court. They realized they couldn't get it while we were watching. They couldn't get anything through the federal court. So they decided we're going to sneak it through the state court, which is actually the court of competent jurisdiction. Notwithstanding the fact that the judges are corrupt there too and don't really do property law, we had to protect against that. In other words, the jury was all protective again here. But the BLM agents testified that the government had title to the land that they wanted this miner off of. Long story short about that, it was finally came out, and while they were recalled to retestify, to be asked, because the attorney failed and forgot, and this is okay, she ended up fixing her problem. She asked the BLM to produce each of the three that she ended up recalling BLM agent, employee, show me the title to the land you claim to have authority over. But they don't have it, folks. If they don't have the title, the government itself has no title, which it doesn't. It has an obligation and duty to dispose. It has the legal ownership sufficient to fulfill that purpose, and that's all. They're sitting in a trust capacity, not as owners like you and I understand. They only have half of the title that's been legally split between legal, equitable, and beneficial. If they don't have title, and this question's all about title, how are they given the right to do anything off that property they don't have title to, inspect something that they have no title for? And if you followed that, which I don't know why people can't follow what I just said, you'll understand the problem we have here. That it's still ongoing, that this judge is not in prison, that the Attorney General is not in prison, that the people who own the property aren't slapped about the head and shoulders about, didn't you get it? Here's how you have to get it and get it back. I don't know, folks. It seems pretty simple to me when I look at it. You're watching the destruction of your property, and there's no one there to stop it, and the only one to stop it are the one with the property, because they're the only ones withstanding to complain. And none of them are. Crickets, folks. This is how we're being taken down. Pretty simple in my mind. It's sad. I don't know what else to do. I can't be everywhere at once. But even when we get our information in some places, no different than Clive and Bundy has disregarded it, it gets disregarded. And then people don't know how to implement it. Can't get people to write a simple letter. Did you write your letters, folks, to the administration of the rules that were going to take away your freedom days based on a potential sickness? Did anybody write a letter? I got no follow-up emails on anybody that might have been interested that anything got done. That's going to be our epitaph. We were dead to our rights, and we lay here dead with no rights. And so what does this do? You start breaking down these private possessions, these exclusive possessions, even against the government, against the grantor obligations, responsibilities between the parties. That's not sovereign and slave, folks. It's grantor and grantee. That's not sales contract. That's not bill of sale. It's a grant. Completely different set of authority. So why, when you get to your houses, do you sell them under sales contracts and agree to the ad valorem market attachment that doesn't exist to a patent land? Why do you do that to yourself? I said you go to your patent on this BLM thing. See, let me show you the difference in Idaho. In Idaho, their right to enter is not underneath the 1872, which gives them the exclusive possession against all the government when they enter with the discovery. They have this other little glitch that they may have to follow through, but I showed you that glitch only exists for 60 days. And I'm not getting into whether or not, and I don't think it would, just on the surface of the application, whether or not these miners even have to file a plan of operation or a notice of intent at all. Because if they do, that means that when they enter those lands, they are a government contractor instead, not a grantee. Total different status, total different obligations and liabilities. Why is these things really that hard to understand for all y'all that say you can't get it? It's not that hard to understand. If you don't get these authorities, then you don't understand your authority. So go ahead and embrace anarchy. No rulers but no rules, or no rulers but rules. Stop. You have to have a hierarchy of authority in your life. It has to be, well, some of you would say it starts with you, but it doesn't. But anyway, it doesn't matter. You have to at least be the first line, however you are organized. You're an organism. You're organized. You have organs. So does the state. It's a fiction of you. It's the fractal of you in a legal sense. So you're organized. You better have a hierarchy of mind, body, spirit. You better have some morals and ethics you are ruled by, and you better have the ruler in you to follow those. That when we don't, we see the chaos that happens that these people bring into your life that you're useless to stop, even though it's your obligation and duty to. And then we see the ramifications that this extends down to where you have no property. They're going to make sure you don't have any property, or they're going to make it so expensive you can't keep it. And that's because you keep on taking on these code and regulation authorities that are not applicable. You don't know how to stop them in the first instance. And that I have to talk strictly to the United States, because I don't know if there's any country that actually has the even the right of eminent domain takings value. See, if you don't have that, then I'd have to go back and look at this a little closer. You have to go find that ability. The government can't just come and take you down. And when they do, that's the problem. That's their obligation and duty, is to not do that. And that's the only power you have. In the United States, we have a couple of things. One looks like eminent domain, which is not, I tell you, that's a big violation to us if anybody believes that. But it's there. It's a one-stop shop. It's the one shield. But then I have another one I found, and it happens to be in these relationships of the disposal authorities. That can't be interfered by the eminent domain. And then only limited by its importance to the society. The same government that's claiming it can come in and invade. See, this is even if they did it right, the cultural aspect that the miners would be possibly interfering with is only limited to those things. The rest of which is now a takings. That if the government doesn't come in and limit it to that, they have a fiduciary breach to protect the society against the war crime of non-use of the minerals that the society itself needs, that the government itself says is a defense, strategic, industrial, on and on need. And so it doesn't look so good on the taking side either, even underneath the Restoration Act, which nonetheless is limited to 60 days at the time of the filing of the notice of location. We call it location notice. It's just a notice. It's what I call the title. And they put a restriction to make sure in these lands of power usage. Why they did this, I don't know. It makes no sense to me. If they have a big deal, there's another law they could use. Again, limited to the smallest footprint, checked for whether or not there's valuable minerals to be extracted, and then work out the balance on how those two are accomplished, not how they're not accomplished. NEPA is all about accomplishing what man needs in a balance with the environment totally, not just the natural, but all of it, man's environment, nature's environment, and other types of environment, whether they be legalistic or not. So it's really sitting there for us to understand. But if we're not going to acknowledge it or use it or enforce it or put it on someone that has to be enforced as an obligation of duty by their oath of office, it means nothing. I've been talking for nothing all these years. So when you don't have the protection and you don't understand how to protect yourself, and you always take it to the wrong court if there is a court, the feds walk into a building and demand everyone's fingerprints to open your phone. So the story of a long time back, a month or so, finally getting to it. The feds can walk into a building and demand everyone's fingerprint to open your phones, folks. In what's believed to be an unprecedented attempt to bypass the security of Apple iPhones or any smartphone that uses fingerprints to unlock, California top cops asked to enter a residence and force anyone inside to use their biometric information to open their mobile devices. Forbes found a court ruling dated May 9th of 2016 in which the Department of Justice sought to search a Lancaster, California property. But there was a remarkable aspect of the search, as pointed out in the memorandum, quote, authorization to depress the fingerprints and thumbprints of every person who is located at the subject premises during the execution of the search and who is reasonably believed by law enforcement to be the user of a fingerprint sensor-enabled device that is located at the subject premises and falls within the scope of the warrant. The warrant was not available to the public, nor were any other documents related to the case. So subject premise, you need to understand, read what a subject premise is in your state law. It's not what you think it is. It's not what they do. It's what they've created, and it's, again, you saw here, who they reasonably believe. That's your in to how to stop a lot of this, notwithstanding the corruption again, but you at least get the record made of how it's not, they have no right to reasonably believe because they've fabricated and committed fraud to make a mischaracterization. But the point is that they use these big data, silent weapons, quiet wars, big data machines, electronics that you plug yourself into to essentially rat yourself out. And they've given, there's now a case here. I won't go on, you can read it. I mean, again, I can read on and on and on. If you're not listening to me, you're not listening. If you are and you're interested, you're going to go look up this story and you're going to read more. You're going to understand what you need to do, how you have to start to understand what you're up against in order to prepare to stop this stuff from happening to you. And again, Department of Justice, was that federal? What are they doing in the state? See, it's all about the commerce stuff, remember? That phone's in commerce. And they have the right to take your thumb, you animal, take your hoof print, just 'cause they reasonably think so. You take your paw print, they can force you to do it with that paw print. That tells you better not use that paw print. You better figure out either not have that phone, or you better figure out something else, or maybe just shut up and say, no, that's not my phone. That's not a phone subject to your authority. And by the way, what is that? And how did this become the subject premises? You have to understand, when I told you before, the ad valorem connection to why you're taxed in your property is this very same connection that creates that premise. Anyway, I won't read anymore. I go on and on about reading this stuff. It's kind of, as I think about it, I just start getting a little bit dejected. But really, you're not listening to me. You're listening to, I guess, how fascinating it is that I'm being able to pull all this out. But you're not going to really do much with it. You're not going to protect yourself. You're not going to understand that you need to know more to be able to protect yourself. Then for better, you're not going to take the steps and say, wait a minute, you jerks, you don't have the right to do this. And figure out how that is. They won't tell you in this story how that is. You got to start thinking about what happens. So that's an article in Commerce, all right? This is why your websites are not private. They're all public. It's all a commerce, something related to commerce. Every bit of it. And a court case came up, and I can't remember now, maybe Reno versus Lopez. I think a Cowboy Tech sent me a link. If you read the case, it says that your social security numbers, those things you use to get your driver's license, your photograph, your signature, the applications, the names, the numbers, they're all articles in commerce. Your photograph, your SSN, is an article in commerce. Subject to federal authority in the state. If you don't think a territory can't be land, does anybody put this stuff together? And I don't know why if you're not. And if you're not, why not? And in these observations are the idea, you start to see what is the reality they've fabricated up, the illusion they put up around you. And until you see it, until it's not transparent to you, there is no way you're going to find the door out of it. You're not going to find the key to unlock the door. You're not going to even know what direction to take. Oh, but you can still search on the internet, and you can go talk and chat, and you can go, talk about other things and complain about it all. But crickets, nonetheless. As much as I love you all, crickets, folks. Now, I guess I love you all because I keep coming back to hope beyond hope. The same way everyone else who goes out and says, I need to get people to see the light. They need to become aware. And I tell, forget them. You are the answer. For you. You become the example. It's the same problem for me that they had just said, I'm telling them not to do as I'm doing to you on the broadcast. Hoping beyond hope that one of you all listen and protect yourself. Learn how to protect yourself. Take the different path. As Gary L. and Gigi was going to apparently be on again 2 hours after this broadcast. Remember to show up there. The road less traveled. Don't take the roads they offer. You have to take that road that's less traveled. Why? Because the crickets travel down the easy road. More intrusion. Now the cops come in and ask you for your fingerprints on your devices, not yours. You're not yours. You're theirs. The property is their subject premise. Why is it subject? I just said property is disposed into exclusive possession and enjoyment. Why is it a subject premise? Is the violation to the patent is a felony. Unless you've done something to give them the idea, the reasonable cause to believe it is a subject premise. Exclusive possession is not subject, folks. How come all of a sudden the premise is subject and it happens to be where you're standing? I ask questions because you need to go find the answer. Do you not like what I'm saying because I'm not giving you the answer? That's the nugget you're looking for, the easy path? That's not the path. I could go on and on that I'm not talking. My mind's racing like 1,000 miles an hour. What I want to tell you all the stuff that's there to find out, to show what this thing is really about, and I just have to bite part of my tongue. The other part has to talk to you. And the answer is you engaging in the proper way, sitting down and saying, okay, what is this thing? This thing really got in my craw. I want to stop it, or at least understand it to be able to protect myself from it. You need to settle down and do that much. You can't be just. What's the cute little thing we have here being talked about when this happens a lot? Squirrel. Yeah, it's fun, but it's not going to give us what we need. It really is not going to give us what we need. We need to focus. DHS uses firefighters to enter homes to give everyone fire risk assessments. If you don't understand what identifying the exclusive possession is against the government's intrusion, it's going to be so important here. DHS, now federal, remember how this, think about jurisdictions here. Federal authority underneath terrorism, the very actor that's doing the terror, the war of terror against you, is using firefighters to spy on Americans in their homes. Now, I'm going to tell you something you may or may not understand. When I was a volunteer firefighter in a so-called rural fire department, the edict came down that the chiefs of every fire department, whether they were organized or not, volunteer, would become certified as cops. This was probably 25 years ago. And if you couldn't become certified as a cop, you were out and they replaced you with a cop. Why? When you went to a fire, the guy who was the head of that would show up and get into your house and be the cop. This has been going on for 2.5 decades, at least, and people don't even know that now. The head of the firefighting department is a cop. That this wasn't a surprise to me, except that now federal authority comes into the cops locally to get the firefighter, the guy you champion to help you out and save your life, and a lot of them do, and I don't want to dismiss again, I did volunteer firefighting. It's quite a job. It's quite a thing to do, and it's quite a need. But when they're being used and allow themselves to be used as spies, if you will, we should have been paying attention. That this is all the encroachment, because you use their benefits and their services. The government uses that as an excuse to come in to essentially work against you. DHS is using the U.S. Census. It's the U.S. Census, folks. How many years have I talked about not doing those censuses? Not giving them the information or understanding how to respond when they get in your face and start to harass you, and how to turn that around as a crime and get them to run away. How many? 4 or 5 different, almost every year the census would come up. The U.S. Census to ask Americans questions about smoke detectors so they can give fire risk assessments. They use the census to ask questions to get the authority to come in, when you fill it out just right, to come in and ask you about that. There's a video here, I guess, that shows how the New Orleans Fire Department, quote, took it up a notch, close quote, and went door to door, boots on the ground, entering residents' homes to install smoke detectors in people's bedrooms, kitchens, etc. In other words, mission creep or expansion of the authority that you give them isn't limited. As soon as you give these people the authority, you give them an inch, they become a ruler. Where have we heard that before? When you don't answer, they're going to come in, is where it's going to go as well. No different than I was telling you. You better start responding to that ability to take you off the streets under the threat of a viral vector disease that they want to stop, because your resistance is going to be futile. Because you're crickets. According to the City of Orleans Analytics Informed Smoke Alarm Outreach Program, a lot of words, the New Orleans Fire Department, NOFD, no Fed? I don't think so. Not with DHS behind their back. Has been going door to door giving homes free fire risk assessments. Nothing's free, folks, since 2015. I'll just end there again. I could read and read and read. If you don't understand the tactics that they're using to encroach upon you and make stuff up and how they do it, give themselves a cause, but it's really just cause, If you're not listening to what I'm saying, you think I'm not giving you the nuggets, or you think you don't understand what I'm saying, it's going to be too bad, so sad. I don't think there's nothing I'm not saying that is not understandable if you just grab it and you'll apply it someplace. If you don't apply it, it's just so much wind in your face. Now DHS, federal, is in your door, inside your house. I just told you, folks, and I don't know of any obligation for you to fill out the census anyway when you're on your own land under the patent. Is there an obligation to fill out the census as a certain status subject to this nonsense? See, once you get the status, they're not even committing crimes here. They're only committing crimes to your sensibilities of what you thought you were. As I tried to explain, your franchise, your V, your voting for vendetta, whatever the heck your franchise that they give you is a status. You've agreed to be treated like this. And I say, if you have, and you've got a vote you think you want to waste away, but you are signed up, I'm asking you, maybe you help me out, hopefully, give us the opportunity to use Trump, hopefully by what he said, use the words against him, to try and get something that we actually need, at least in part, at least in the West. If that vote is called for, fine. But if it's going to be wasting away, for two reasons. One, if you all get out as a Republican in Democratic states and you 100% get out and you overthrow the Democratic vote, then you'll see your Electoral College was going to go to someone who didn't deserve it. That's more fuel to the fire that's legitimately proven. On the other hand, you have no way to stop if it is in a context of already predetermined. We have no way to prove that. It'll go underneath the skin as a hidden form in the internet, a hidden form in the computers that count. That is, these same people are allowing all this internationalism on you, and you are, well, like I said, it's actually gone beyond, because they went extrajudicial. All this is extrajudicial. You have no remedy against this. There's no judiciary, even if it was competent, that can protect you when you've allowed it to go this far. And here it is. It's not conjecture. So they're here in our face, and they're doing these things, and we continue to allow them because we don't know how to not. We don't know how to just say no in the correct way. If you say it in the wrong way, and I agree that imposition alone is a violation, but this is the reality. If you say it in the wrong way, it's like a yes. I've explained numerous times how to avoid the census thing, but I've also explained how to stop this nonsense. If they come knocking on your door and want to do a free risk assessment, that's a lie. Just say no, thank you. And if they'll press it, say, I think you just committed a felony. You're committing a lie, aren't you? You're not here. With this story, you have this in your pocket, your bag of facts and law. With this lie, you are here to do this. And so, no. And if you retaliate against me, I'm coming after you, Mr. Friendly Firefighter, who now I don't trust, and I've lost respect in you, you scum. Now, do I just say that? Well, when I get the backing of the law and the facts and I see the story, yeah, I get to say that. Because they are an enemy at the gate. They are Dracula, aren't they? I tell you, don't let Dracula in your house. You can't even, and it's been this way, people don't even know this, you can't even trust your local firefighter now. And as I thought about it, I had to preface that story that says I was one of those. Just so I could say that. So I'd be PC, couldn't I? I'm the only one that can say that because I was a volunteer firefighter for a number of years. Otherwise, I would be off limits for me to say that firefighters now are Dracula. Nonsense. But we allow it. We allow it because we've broken down our own walls, our own shields, our own authorities, our own law. We've allowed it to be broken down. And then we go to people that have no capacity to give it to us. And we don't call out that crime. Folks, we're infiltrated and surrounded. You don't have to go far. Just make the decision to do something that's peeved you. That's a lot more than 4 letters, so I don't think I cussed there, okay? So we live in a delusion. If we think we can get through this thing without being interfered with, one day you're standing innocently and some cop come in and say, I want your phone Saw you talking on your phone. I want your fingerprint. Grabs you up, beats you down. You understand? It's not just getting your fingerprint. Resisting arrest now? Stop. Obstruction of administrative justice? Stop. You don't get it if you haven't seen all that coming. We live in a delusion. And until we kind of break that in ourselves, well, we have to break it. We don't, not kinda. I see it, we're done. No amount of Second Amendment saving this one, folks. And Lincoln proved to us that that's not going to work. And you're all agreeing to having your guns, like I said, you get ammunition down to 10 rounds, like someone did a scientific study that your right to bear arms could be accomplished in 10 rounds each. Crickets. You're again, hallucinating. Delusional and hallucinating. They've got you controlled. Your hive mind is so programmed you don't even know it. If you think that's what, if you're relying on all that, you are programmed beyond anybody you think is not awake or not aware. You are worse. I said that with a lot of love, folks. Tough lessons behind the woodshed. And why am I maybe turning that heat up even more? Nobody wants to hear it, I'm sure. No one wants to get behind the woodshed and learn a lesson. It's for your own good, but you have a choice. You're so-called the adult, that adult insect that they stomp on, that cricket. You're an adult. You can make your own decisions, right? I got lessons to teach you. And if we don't learn this, we're done. I mean, it's not me. I figured out they're waiting for me to die. And when my voice is gone, well, except for the archives that anybody might find that are around, that voice, that knowledge, gone. Goes no example anymore. And you didn't help. And so your little ones are coming on. They're gonna be suffering, and they're gonna be so unable to even perceive this. You know how much will become transparent to them? It's really sad. It just saddens me just to think about it. I got nothing here to protect in that regard, but it saddens me for all y'all and those of you that thought there were some in the future, and just make excuses for not stepping in some place. I'm not making the judgment where. I can't make the judgment of your capacity to. I understand lots of people have troubles. But take a moment, even 5-10 minutes, do something focused on a problem. I know a lot more of you could put a little more time in. Again, when it's that important, you end up putting the time forth. But you have to have the capacity. You can't be under delusion or an hallucination like those in Oregon Hospital a few weeks ago were admitted to an ER, quarantined after people started hallucinating. It started out with some woman in Coos Bay who was quarantined in an emergency room, a 78-year-old patient. Her caregiver, 2 sheriff deputies were also hospitalized based on this, and a hospital employee, all having hallucinations, as I found kind of fitting to our condition. But more to the point, it happened all without knowledge of what is causing this. Anybody who came in contact with the woman that exhibited the hallucinations, which started around 3 in the morning, and they finally took her into the hospital around 5, they all came into the same condition of hallucinating. They quarantined the ER. They don't know what caused it, folks. I looked at that and said, that's the crickets. That's just a magnification telling us that's how this hallucination delusion goes on. Just touch one. Just go. It's like a movie I've seen. You just touch it, and then the evil comes on you, and you're disoriented. You have no control of it then. You have to be cared for. That's society. But what was fascinating more about that is the fact that they don't know what caused it. And lots of things came to my mind. I mean, who knows? It's all conjecture. Was another story that popped out that looks different but had the same effect. And I just started to wonder. Mystery drug strikes again on the Gold Coast, all the way down under in Queensland. Paramedics fear a mysterious new drug that causes severe hallucinations may be handed around at an annual schoolies celebration. That caught my attention. It happened on the same day. Hasn't happened since, folks. These hallucinations, which down under they called mystery drug. Was it I don't know. I just found it fascinating. It depicted our cricketness in some level, at an extreme magnified level. How this unknown sickness goes through the herd of the deniers. I'm not sick, I'm hallucinating. Oh, come over here, we got to quarantine you. You're incapable now. You don't even understand. And then they name it on a drug. And we don't know that it was a drug. They don't even know that it was a drug, but that's what the press wants you to say. And I'm thinking, wow, it could be any of these things. Was this a test? I don't know, but I just found it somehow interesting. I don't know why it captured me so. A substance that makes anybody who touches the next guy, the first one who has the hallucination, to hallucinate, and then it goes away. What is that? I look at that. That's our society. We're living a big hallucination. We touch each other in the wrong way. Just be in our own presence without any covering devices. Somehow it got stopped. Those of us that have some shielding, some protective cover aren't affected. But everybody who didn't understand it still doesn't understand it. Was just hallucinating. It happens in the North Hemisphere and the South Hemisphere. Same thing. We can call it whatever we want. Point is, people are hallucinating, and no one knows why. That's just, to me, that was just a metaphor for society today. Again, they feed us information that we pick up on. Just want to touch back on the health thing, kind of on the interaction with nature and what we think we're being told and what's going on, and whether or not it's a natural or unnatural, man-made. The Zika virus is harmless. It does not cause birth defects. We told you so was a list again I got quite a few weeks ago, and they're talking about now again. There's a congressional study and a report that shows and explains that Zika isn't caused by the virus. The virus is harmless. They do point out, as I pointed out, not because I'm so smart, but because I read the information from the scientists down in South America that said that larval side, the pesticide, was what was causing the problem. Everyone, mainstream media denied it. And then you saw a lot of people when it hit America. Again, they didn't tell us that America actually suffers from the problem more than even Brazil. But there was lots of people that got abortions over this. Remember, they went door to door. Remember, in Florida? Same problem. They go into your house, tell you they're going to give you a risk assessment. Oh, you're at risk. Kill your baby. And they did. Well, here's a report for all y'all just moving over to, kind of doing this health thing. What affects us, the environment we live in, how we hallucinate because we're told to. Don't know why. Don't do anything about it. Don't really put the words together and make it available. You don't have to push it down everybody's throat. You just address their fear. I guess seems to be fear mongering is what seems to be one of the keys. Just offer information that may allay the fear and hope that's maybe enough. Give alternatives for why you're not falling into it, and just move on. I mean, I don't know what else to say about that. But here, again, if we can believe the Congressional Research Service, and I say that CRS, I say that because looking at some of these things regarding public land or public domain use and the government, I've seen some major flaws, and so I can't imagine that they're putting this out as a major flaw. If they had the opportunity to say so and they were using it as the tool to control you all, they would have, and they didn't. So I would have to say this is probably more correct, and it correlated with the information that we heard coming out of scientists out of South America that was being blamed for the origins of this, and it wasn't. It's around. It's a part of the natural environment, and so is all of the atmosphere. And I found this little story pretty interesting. What we look past in all of these things that we're told is going on, even if we don't agree. It says Germany unveils zero emissions train that only emits steam. And so these are the governments telling you how they're working for your benefit, and they've now made a train that has zero emissions that only emits steam. Now, part of this was kind of hard to understand and see, but if you look at where the thing comes from and where they listed it I went back to the source page, and I looked, and they listed underneath their global warming section. So this is why that story came out. It's now in context. Climate change is relevant. Germany is set to introduce the world's first zero-emission passenger train to be powered by hydrogen. Coradia Island only emits excess steam into the atmosphere. and provides an alternative to the country's 4,000 diesel trains. Won't read more. My thought went on this other problem, another problem, just saying these trains weren't. Remember, climate change is based on anthropomorphic cause. Anything you do is a problem. In other words, building the train becomes part of your footprint. That these trains were not zero emissions. Their lithium batteries are not zero emissions. The metals that they came from, the plastics, the resins, are not zero emissions to get them to make the train alone. So let's move beyond that. But I looked at this when I found out it was literally coming from their global warming section in their site and climate change. Does anybody miss the point that in the context of those that believe that climate change or anthropomorphic global warming is not a fraud? Within those people, steam is a greenhouse gas. In fact, it's the worst one. Did you miss that when I read the title? The title tells us everything. Germany unveils zero emissions train that only emits steam. The government of Germany is a liar. This train emits the worst global greenhouse gas, if you believe that climate change by anthropomorphic cause is not a fraud. And those of us that do believe it's a fraud, steam is irrelevant. It's not a greenhouse gas. It's just a gas. It's a water vapor. I guess steam is high pressure, coming out into pressure, finding its equilibrium, turning into water vapor, which goes into the atmosphere. I just was fascinating, though. People were picking this up and really kind of, in my mind, no one comments on this stuff. They just kind of pass it along. Didn't say, but wait. Well, I did. I sent a Twitter back up. But wait, did anybody miss the fact that steam is one of the worst greenhouse gases if you don't believe that anthropomorphic warming is a fraud? And I went to an article real quick just to verify that I was remembering correctly. Sometimes I wonder if I really pick up all this stuff. A sign outside of Walter Wang Power Station west of Lithgow depicts a silhouette of a plant's giant cooling tower with a wispy cloud gushing from the top below the image of two words, water vapor. The sign, explains a spokesman for the local energy generator, Delta Electricity, corrects a public misunderstanding. People assume the cooling towers are somehow emitting greenhouse gases, she said. Actually, it is water vapor, steam. And so there's a lie in this, but steam is a greenhouse gas. Dr. Paul Fraser, a chief research scientist of CSIRO, Marine and Atmospheric Research, says water vapor is a greenhouse gas. So there's a doctor that, if you didn't believe me, you can believe him, I suppose. Enough said about the lie that we're told, the fraud that's right in our face, the little technicalities we seem to miss, that we tend not to respond to, that when we don't respond to, these people win. They win the day, they win the hearts, they win the minds, they win more importantly, the behavior in you they're trying to control and are controlling. It's a mystery, I guess, folks, like the mystery hallucination over there in the Down Under and then over in Coos Bay. Why are these people hallucinating? Well, we don't know, but they are. Let's quarantine them all. Why does anybody believe a train can be zero emissions in the context of climate change, global warming, when it emits steam is really beyond me, though it's a pretty funny joke. And people over there in Germany said, okay, that's fine. Now, am I against the technology that does this wonder? No, I think it's cool. I think it's pretty neat. I don't know how the heck they compressed all that hydrogen without using emissions, though. They didn't get that hydrogen out of a cow's butt. Not without power. Not without getting something somewhere. That's what energy's about. So we see the lie, we see the big fraud, and no one says anything. Oh no, we're going to have all these stack 'em and pack 'em transportation mode systems to put you on that you believe are zero emissions. Keep hallucinating, folks, and be silent. Keep acting as if you're hallucinating by being capable of responding. Keep believing the memes, the ideas that have no foundation. And I'm going to move on now to this thing. I don't know whether to laugh or cry, folks. And this leads me into some other things only because of what the statement. It's coming out of the Dollar Vigilante. This is a long time back. He printed this out. It's a picture of this guy, Jeff Berwick, I suppose. He says, anarchy is a word that properly expresses, excuse me, it's so screwed up I can't even read it. I'm going to read it. I'm going to get this thing right. But this just shows the hallucination that starts, it continues, and no one checks it. The nonsense that goes on. Anarchy is a word that properly expressed is a synonym for love. What kind of hallucination is that guy under? A synonym for love. Tell that to Genghis Khan. And all y'all that may disagree with me, you ain't read enough. I'm just going to tell you, I love you all. I'm trying to explain that you got it wrong. And until you get it righter, you're going to be not really focused. You're going to be taking your actions and putting your energies in places that are at least misplaced. All these people that are really intelligent and active and engaged and in positions that have the power to be powerful are not. And that's my problem with it all. That's probably my basic problem with the Indians' cause in North Dakota. It's the wrong thing, being led by the wrong people. And if it's not just me that said that. I just heard somebody else who they had to preface the PC nature of the statement on a broadcast, an actual terrestrial broadcaster, who came in who said, "Oh, this guy's got Indian blood in him, so I guess he has more authority to speak on the North Dakota thing." I had to wonder whether or not he hadn't listened to my broadcast. Now, he had some things that were different, so I know he actually didn't. But he said essentially the same things I did. That was with someone with Indian blood. I guess that makes him more authoritative. So I'm not the only one that sees the deception, and I'm saddened that there's people that are being deceived. No different than this guy. I mean, I'm dumbfounded. Anarchy is a synonym for love. Please, stop this. Where do we get these drugs or spores or demons that come through us by touching this stuff with our eyes that we don't check with a thought? I know tons of people that are going down the wrong path and they don't see it yet. See, because it becomes a part of this other thing that's been going on. I've been really watching. I've been really concerned about it. And I think I have my first evidence. This is the same idea that wants to bring out, and it's a totally different idea that is still able to be speaking. It's not called anarchy, though. It's actually called what it is, which is the definition of what people are calling anarchy is not anarchy. That's a whole other thing. They're just trying to tie this distinction, this distancing of organization, this pseudo word statism. They're trying to make distance on that. That's the only reason why this word's being used, and even though it's being wrongly used, because no one has a more distant word they can use than anarchy. It is the antithesis of any rule, organization, or thought. Again, I gave it an A. I think it's not even fully true here. It's even worse than this, but I think the name is Murphy. That's anarchy, not love. But so this comes on to other things that are sold to us so we buy into. One of these things I've been really concerned with is this blockchain issue. And this guy that I was speaking to that says about anarchy, he's an economist type guy, the dollar vigilante. I don't know anything about him. I've seen a couple things here and there. I'm not impressed, but some people are. And then when he came up with that, I just said, this is the problem. Here's the guy he doesn't even know he's the problem. Even if he's straight up and honest about it, he doesn't understand it's a problem. But these are the type of people that bring this blockchain thing forward that I was telling you, if they attach it to your properties and your systems, is going to be trouble. And I may have found the evidence for that. This happened quite a long time ago, and I hope I can get through this. And I hope I remember all this long bit, over a month and a half ago, that this evidence came out. I actually sent a Twitter back to this Chicago's Cook County clerk And I asked a question about this because it proposes such a problem that the insiders of the global governance are working now to blockchain your property. And when you see the standards they're using to do so, it should become clear why you can't do it actually in laws of the United States, but you don't want to do it because of what it allows to those that make those decisions, that control the blockchain. On top of there's quite a bit here. Chicago's Cook County to test Bitcoin blockchain-based property title transfer. Right off the bat, folks, remember, we just had this, we are suffering, continuing to exist with this MERS problem, which was simply an organization. It's been found to be, that process is found to be unlawful, but it continues. And it's just simply a system of moving and transferring property through a system that's not amenable to judicial or county recordation. It's been found to be illegal. That when you do the blockchain and you attach property is really a surrogate MERS, in that the MERS system of the plunderers relied on no original documentation at all to further the plunder. And then, as some people that I know that have been involved in cases have found out, there have been, even with the evidence that can be brought forward, 3, maybe 4 copies of documents that are all different, that purport to be the lawful document of evidence of the title, that the blockchain can't be. In other words, remember you heard that the MERS, the people that started understanding what it was about, said, we need you, the mortgage company, to bring in your ink signature, your wet ink signature. These have to be identifiable on their own and brought as certified evidence. The blockchain as a digital database is not that wet ink signature. That this blockchain can't replace that evidence system called your county clerk. That seems to me, at least just by this title, to be the main problem with blockchaining anything that requires actual evidence. I'm talking the physical stuff, not an allegation of the stuff. And I always also have a problem, as I say, maybe in tongue in cheek at some level, but seriously so, nonetheless. This is the stuff that, when we see people that can encroach upon the blockchain and then legitimize it, is the stuff that terrifies me about it. And we've seen evidence of that as well, to show that these blockchains are not impervious. A second problem. And so I look right at the first picture that I see on this, and it says, all these different pictures of the transfer certificate, registry of the deeds for whatever the state is. It only says a small picture, but it says in accordance with the presidential decision. And then it says issued by the department. I suppose that's the Interior. This is a receipt, is what I'm looking at from what I can tell. Transfer certificate receipt. A legitimate, in your hands piece of evidence that has what we would call wet ink signatures. In other words, it took someone physically to put that on. It wasn't manufactured by machines to authenticate it. I'm looking at a picture of this, of just a part of this form that is what I'm talking about right underneath the title, that cannot be replicated in a blockchain, that they're going to attach to your property. They're working now to do so. Through an exclusive partnership with real estate tech startup Velox, Chicago's Cook County will test the use of the Bitcoin blockchain for transferring and tracking property titles and other public records. It's not about tracking and transferring. It's about proving what you have in a court of law. What they're going to be transferring and tracking is those things that are in commerce, not your patent stuff anyway. And so there's going to be another deception going on. The Cook County Recorder's Office is the second largest such office in the United States, and it will be the first in the country to experiment with blockchain technology. land possession in the country, the United States of America, and amongst the states of the Union, is not something you experiment with, first of all. See, it's going to be a continuing experiment even when they implement it, because it's not certain. It's not actually not defeatable. And it hasn't been shown to be not defeatable. Neither has it shown it to be the repository of wet ink evidence, which became so critical in the MERS issues that were shown MERS to be a crime. Specifically, go back. Partnership. This is a private-public partnership between the corporation of the city and this private partner, or this real estate entity. This real estate is another fraud upon the people. What the real estate agents do is they convert your patent land to tenancies by your escrow documents. People don't recognize how this works. Specifically, the office will be testing blockchain applications of property title transfer and a system for filing liens. It's not just for property title, but it's attaching your property through a blockchain. Who would be better positioned to attach themselves to your property through a blockchain but the government itself? Compatibility between the blockchain and a traditional server-based setup, fraudulent use prevention, and conveyances of vacant property in Chicago is the reason why they also want to do it. But their server-based setup is irrelevant to you getting that actual copy of the evidence that's sitting in the archive for the purpose, to be certified as such. They don't need this elaborate system to stop these other things. Server-based setup, that's just you walking in and getting information that might be available. You still have to go to the actual physical evidence that the blockchain cannot replicate. In addition to Velox.re and the Cook County Recorder's Office, the International Blockchain Real Estate Association, Armor Settlement Services, and the global law firm of Hogan Lovells are involved with the closed pilot project in the second largest market of your property. International. Armored Settlement Service. Do you think these people are unattached to the global financial system that's already shown that they'll steal your property through MERS? The project was first announced by Velox. Of course, I'm going to invent a product you can come and buy from me. Founder, CEO Ragnar Litthershire on Wednesday at the ProTech Summit, the MIPIM ProTech Summit, which the New York City Real Estate Tech Week 2016. Remember, real estate. These people, the realtors, are part of members of a legal association. Essentially, the test for a real estate agent is one of their ethics and how you're going to conform. So when you get your license, you've been given notice of how you're going to legitimately steal their property by obfuscation of what's going on through the paperwork, as what I figured out. Why? PC, I was one of them for a little while. Because I was one of them, I can talk about them, right, folks? I was able to get my real estate license in a time that everyone said was impossible. I was able to do it. Once I got the license, I realized what it was all about. This is a long time ago. I had the late eyes to see. I could see only after I'd done it. All this is an ethical way to steal your property. And you're on commission to do so. And if you look really carefully at the paperwork, that's all that you do. So it didn't really matter my performance level to try and stop starving in the streets and make something of myself, thinking I was doing something helping everybody. Passing the test within 30 days, supposed to take 6 months. You do lots of cool things when you're starving. You do what it takes. So I guess I'm telling you, you can just step up and do something. You'll be surprised at what you accomplish. And to find out that it was just a leash around my neck to steal from people. And then the idea is, well, we're supposed to know how to do this ourselves, but it's not a sale we're supposed to do. Now I learn now. What I'm really finding out is that you work from the patent. You don't work from the ad valorem marketability side of the deed. Velox RE's own implementation of the Open Assets Protocol, to make it sound like it's all accessible. Remember, this is a closed system, which is a version of the colored coins concept. I hope bells are ringing here. Colored coins concept, which will be used to test the various uses that making this an implementation where the public blockchain, not a permissioned ledger, is being used. Colored coins is like colored people. The colored person. You are colored by the law. You're colored by the constraint. What am I talking about? You're colored under Title 42, Section 1981, and you shall pay exactions of every kind. Remember, extortions of every kind. You're colored by the law. It has nothing to do with your skin color. It has to do with your legal status. These coins are colored. They're golden. They're not gold. How subtle they have the hallucination that we buy into. Ooh, it's golden. It must be good enough. Real estate blockchain initiatives in other countries have used the private blockchain as an improved database of some existing land records. This was a great first step. Let me identify for you, if you missed it, some existing land records. Yeah, maybe liens the government's putting all over you, but more importantly here, in other countries, private blockchain may be worked. Folks, the United States is a company. It's a country apart in its land laws. It's not amenable to international law unless you're dealing in internationalized things. I hope you didn't miss that. Land possession exclusive of the government, even against the government, is not known anywhere else, folks. This is our power. This is part of the power. You have to really understand that thing. Anything they do to cloud that, clouding is coloring. And I'm not talking between lines or out of lines. This is just they put a cloud or color on your title by all this. It's colored coins. It's blockchain. They're tying it into that same system. Our pilot program takes this further. Not only do they impose this that they can on the United States, they're going to go further with this, folks. Velox.re is using Bitcoin blockchain. We're using it to actually convey property and register liens. We're performing high-value transactions on the blockchain. Cook County will enter these into the government public record. This is the first time this has been done in the United States or anywhere else in the world. So this is even going beyond what would be allowed internationally that's not applicable. They're taking it up a notch, folks. The things they're mentioning are not something I'd want attached my property to be a part of. I don't know about you. Earlier this year, the government of Vermont released a report regarding the potential use of blockchain technology for public record keeping. Okay. Did they look at it with the eyes of an attorney and a plunderer and a real estate agent and a legal entity? Or do they look at it from the prospect of a property owner who needs protection by the evidence in a court, a record that he can go down to and get the certified record for, to keep something like MERS from happening? You want to make it easier for a lien to put on your property and harder to get off? Folks, have you thought about this? Have you ever heard of an IRS lien? Do you understand what they're talking about here? How about the state's lien against you? How about the county's lien against you? The city's lien against you? What did I tell you a long time ago? There was technology one day. I looked on a website, 6 originating inventions that when I looked at it, I said, man, by the time you approach an intersection and you go through that on the wrong time and they think that you've done it on a red light, before you reach the other side, there's all this technology here now. This is 10, 15 years ago. They'll have your bank account deducted. They'll have a thank you for doing business with the city receipt popping out of on your phone, and or if they found out you didn't have enough in your bank account, have a drone neutralizing you before you reach the other sidewalk, other crosswalk. This is how automated this thing's going to become against property rights. It's going to be strictly digitized, and there's not going to be a proof of the fact of the right of any of it. It's just going to happen automatic. You have no say in that. We are excited to partner with a group that is actually interested in how this technology can work in real world situations. Well, this is just the privateers and plunderers against property, folks. And they're putting in the blockchain in on this. They're going to try and make this all modernized. If you don't understand why we have the record system we do, the way we do, you're missing the point that these people are not looking at it all. They know about it, but they're not going to match it. In fact, that was the question I asked the county recorder. I said, how are you not doing this? And she crickets, folks. She's not going to answer that because it's a violation. A blockchain-based public record is where you would start if you were to create a public land record from scratch, and that's why I'm so interested in seeing that it take a foothold in the United States. Folks, it can't. You need the physical evidence. Oh, we can keep track of it as no other database that you'd walk in and let me see where that property is, but the fact of evidence and proof is not in that blockchain. That does not satisfy the laws of the United States. According to the release from the Cook County Recorder of Deeds, the office has identified 3 aspects of blockchain technology that make it a viable option for their activities. A permanent, immutable public record that is immune to well-funded nation-state attacks, a path towards paperless land transfers and so-called e-deeds, and reduced costs for offices across the county that want to upgrade electronic document processing systems. Are any, except for as an intrusion, are any of those relevant to a landowner who wants to protect his land when he can't get the documents and it's now easier for some nefarious lien to be placed that he can't protect against? And there's more to say. I'm running out of time here, I think. These features can make real estate, how about patent land, real estate more liquid and transaction more seamless and secure. For whom? For the government. More liquid to pour it out of your account into theirs. More help from others was another title here. IBREA, the international people, will help to help get local individuals involved with the pilot program on the ground. Sure, buy in, folks. Next thing you know, they're going to be grabbing your thumb and shoving it on your phone and beating you up for it. The organization, which advocates for the use of blockchain for various real estate-related purposes, will specifically target those with a stake in the local real estate industry. Well, now we got cluster groups under strategic plans, folks. We got secure cities. Do you understand what they're doing here in the blockchain? I told you, blockchain's going to be the international record eventually. However they divide it all up, however it ends up working. But it's not for your benefit. It's for the government's benefit to help the privateers, the private-public partnerships plunder your property. Well, if you think you have it, they're going to prove to you you don't by you continually agreeing. Once you're in the system, you're also going to be subject to that code enforcement officer. We're looking forward to bringing investors, developers, and community members to participate in the blockchain-based transactions, said IBREA Chicago Chair Zaid Odzik. Well, yeah, folks, here we are, investors, developers, and community members. Did they say property owners? No. These are the stakeholders. These are the criminals I've been talking about. These are the ones I talked about in those documents. They tell you that they're criminals. These are the ones in control of that blockchain, and there's more. I didn't even get to all of it. But I'm not going to talk more about this. You have to understand, when they brought the blockchain in, they brought in another type of control system that you are not going to be benefited by. And the stakeholders win again, the criminals. Just because they can interfere with your property, they become a stakeholder in your life. You continue to think that all these nuance, these new things, these new silent weapons or quiet war tools are for your benefit. You live that hallucination and you don't actively act against it. Maybe you'll get out of here. A lot of the people I talk to are probably a little older. We may not be here, but everybody else is going to suffer. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope something I said helps you all to get moving, get something done. Helps you actually, if you got a project you were doing that it does help. Thank you, Grimner, for the Real Liberty Media spot to put the blogcaster in the archive. Appreciate that for everybody to listen, for those that do. Bo Diddy and you on the Freedoms Network social network. Sign up for that, folks, if you want to. Jules, again, thank you for this syndication. TalkStream Live for listing us the hour that it does. Periodically, I don't talk about much of that, but I thank for that. And terrestrial broadcasters, although any of you beaming that content, I appreciate all that. And I'll be here next week. Tech diffs and nature willing.